Okay, now that we have just some rough textures on here that are just pretty straightforward, somewhat plain so far for our diffuse map slot. Let's do something here. Let's go ahead and get out of here by clicking on the paint tool here and watch what happens. We now have a dialog box that pops up, and it's asking us, how do you want to save these textures now that we have them on layers? Because remember, we started off by saving this diffuse map as a JPEG. JPEGs can't have layers. So what we want to do here is we want to save as a PSD and replace the texture in the material, meaning it's going to replace that original JPEG file with a PSD file that has all the layers. So let's click on this right here. So it's the third one down, other than continue painting. Third selection down, save as PSD and replace texture in material. So do that, and we're going to call this diffuse, except it's going to save it as a PSD file. Okay, so the JPEG is going to still be in here because we're saving it with a different type of extension, which is changing the name to some degree. Say save. Okay, and now we're out of Viewport Canvas. Let's take a look at what this looks like in the material editor. Look at what we have here. In the diffuse color slot, we have a bitmap texture called diffuse.psd in here. It has all of the layers intact, and we're actually able to use a PSD file in here. So when we go back into Viewport Canvas to do some more work in our diffuse area, diffuse map slot textures, we're going to have all of our layers intact, and we'll be able to work individually on those different layers, like the jeans and the shirt and so forth, the skin and whatnot. And that's a really cool feature in Viewport Canvas that gives you that option. So let's go ahead and put this away now that you know what's going on in here. So as I said earlier, this is what exactly happens with Viewport Canvas. It actually saves the texture in the map slot that we are working in the material editor. Okay, so let's take a look at this right now and just kind of render the production and see what it looks like. So it looks okay, doesn't look bad. Default lighting doesn't look that, I don't love the lighting and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some lights in here really quick. Do this. Let's hide this guy. He's been bugging me lately. We don't need him in here right now. So let's go ahead and hide selection. So you're there, that's gone. And we're going to need a top view so I can actually create some lights in here. Okay, perspective view. And I'm going to create, just go with standard primitive lighting. Okay, and go with a standard primitive lighting. Thank you. We want to make sure that we're using standard as opposed to photometric. Photometric is great for architectural types of situations where you have precise scales of, the ceiling 8 feet off the floor and things like that, but we're not dealing with that right here. So we're going to use standard lighting and just use an omni lights. They're really handy. So the reason why I'm putting the lighting in here is because then we'll really be able to get a feel for our textures and kind of get a sense of what's really going on here. So I'm going to make a key light, somewhere out here. We can always move them later. And we want to make sure it's not on the ground. So let's zoom out a little bit, and there it is. And let's get our move tool and move that up. Got to get lighting in here so that we can actually see what's going on, get a better feel for it. And oops, move it up a little further. There we go. That should be pretty good. All right, and then we're going to go to the material. To the modify tab here, and make sure that shadows are turned on. Okay. I'm also, just to make it, once again, just kind of give a feel for kind of how this stuff is going. Textures and lighting go together, and they really support each other. The lighting is necessary to make the textures really appear the way that we expect them to. And so we really should have lights in here. So let's go, and I'm also going to create just a basic plane in here for him to be standing on, so that when it casts shadows, it'll actually be casting shadows on that plane from him. So I'll go back into, and let's just make this plain like gray. Let's give it a gray color. It's a nice basic gray. Okay, there we go. Good enough. All right, now let's go back to our lighting. We need to create another Omni light, and we need one somewhere behind them as a fill light. We also, well, actually over here probably better yet, as a fill light, and that does need to be kind of low, but not, you know, embedded in the ground. So let's go get our move tool. Get this guy up. I don't know why I'm going up here and clicking. I should be right clicking in the viewport here. And what that's going to do is it's going to fill in the shadows a little bit. So we don't want it to be as strong as the key light. And incidentally, I should be naming these. So I'm going to call this key light. Okay. And we're going to call this one fill light. And then we're going to reduce the intensity to, let's make it about 0.4. And let's also reduce the, change the color to a little bit cooler color, something in that sort of, just a nice cool color. And it'll also darken it a little bit. Make a little bit more color, and that's a gray. That should do. And then finally we want to create a backlight, because the backlight will help to illuminate the back of this and you know, just make it look a little more natural also. So I'm going to get another Omni light, and I'm just going to put it directly behind him. And I'm going to get that off the ground a little bit also, and just kind of, it's sort of like another fill light, only it's a little different because it's illuminating the back of the character and separating it from whatever background might be there. And so let's go ahead and change the settings for that. That's actually fine the way it is. We'll leave that. You took on the same settings as the last light that we made, so it should be okay. And this one should be one white and a whole bit. So let's see what we get now when we render this guy out. Let's angle him just a little bit, perhaps. Okay. See, that looks a whole lot better. A lot better than the lighting situation that was the default lighting in there. I also need to move the floor up just a little bit so that it's, because he's not all the way down on the ground. Re-render that. That looks more natural. There we go. So now we have some cast shadows. We got. It just looks more natural. It's going to show off our textures a whole lot better now too. So if we moved in really tight here, we'll be able to see some of those textures a little bit better. See this? You can actually see the actual threads, sort of like texture that's on the shirt, and even some of the skin texture as well. So we're in good shape. All right. Now let's go back to the orthographic view. Let's maximize that view again. And start working on him again. And you know what I'm going to do before I do that? I'm going to hide the ground for the moment, just because we're going to be wanting to get to the bottom of the shoe and stuff, maybe, and stuff like that, or just rotate from underneath, and that ground will be in the way. Okay, so let's get on with some really basic stuff that we're going to be doing in here. Now, watch, when we go to paint. We're going to want to make sure that we have paint on diffuse color. Now, let me just show you at this juncture. This is a good time to show you. The next time we get done, when we get done with the diffuse color, we're going to want to paint a different type of texture, like say a bump map or maybe a specular map or something. And what we're going to want to do is go in here and choose from this list. Oh, we have to select our character first. See, it gives us a little bit of a heads up there. Click on this, and you get the list again from down here this time of what we want to start working on. Do we want to work on? See, it's telling us right here. You want to work on this PSD file, okay? And that's saved in on the in my user folder on the desktop, skateboarder, textures, etc. Okay, and so we're going to be using that one. But what if I wanted to do the specular level or glossiness or a bump map or whatever? I'd choose one of those, and then we would be working on those instead. Okay, we're going to leave it at diffuse right now because we're not done with that. So let's go ahead and click on paint, and now we have our layers back intact. We can work on the genes and so forth, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on this gene area. So I'm going to go in, zoom in a little bit tighter here, and I can see this this texture pretty well. So that's going to be pretty great. We've got mirroring on, paint behavior, mirroring on the axis, so that when you can see what's happening with the, you can probably see a little shadow of the brush on his left leg. We're on the right leg right now with the brush, and so it'll do the same thing on both of them. And what we want to do this time is we're not going to use this kind of brush image. We're going to use a mask this time. So I'm going to select the mask, and we're going to use like the scratch mask here. And we're going to want to use it with a color that's going to, be sort of like a faded version of the jeans. So we're going to create some scratchiness, like he scuffed up his jeans or they're worn or whatever a little bit, and kind of get that feel in there. Maybe even create a seam on the side of the pants and stuff, and so forth. So let's go ahead and pick a color, something in the blue jean kind of color area, which is going to be sort of in this area right here, I think, but lighter in value. We don't want it to be white exactly, but we want it to be pretty light and somewhat blue. Bring it up a little bit more. Let's do that. Let's make it a little bit more bluish. There we go. That'll work. Okay. And say okay. So we're going to be working with this color with this mask, and when we do that, we also want a bigger brush. So let's fix the brush settings here. Make it a pretty good sized brush. Whoop, that's too big. Somewhere around there, I think it'll be about right. There we go. And we'll start painting that scratchiness just on here, and I might just sort of like click a few times just to kind of get something going here in the knee area. It's a natural place for your jeans to get worn. So we're going to have to go up. Am I on the right? Yes, I am. And make sure that this is working properly. Oh, you know what? This is probably, oh, that's fine. Use the mask, use the color. It might be too not contrasty enough of the color. Let's do this. Let's go down here. Say, okay, it's almost a white now. There we go. Now we're going to see something. That was really the problem, I guess. So the white will work out just fine. It'll sort of, blend in a little bit with the jeans anyway. So we can just sort of do this. Kind of, do this a little bit. And go over it. There we go. Okay. And we zoom out a little bit. You can see how it's starting to look a little bit like he's got his pants are a little scuffed up. Rotate them around, get a little bit of that going on in here. Maybe a little bit different size, stamps in here would be good. The farther I zoom in, the smaller the detail is going to be because the brush size is staying the same, but I'm getting closer in on the there we go. That's pretty good. Now, along with that, I'm going to actually create another layer, I believe. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to call this details in here. So that we've added some of that stuff in there. In fact, practice makes perfect. I'm going to undo what we did so far. Back up here a little bit. Okay, this will make a lot more sense because what we'll be able to do with this detail layer that I'm making is we'll be able to work with that layer independently if I want to fade it out a little bit, make it a little less transparent, or more transparent, I should say. So, or add, some other color adjustment stuff like we did before, adjust, things, or maybe add a filter. So by doing it on this layer, we have a lot more control. So I should have been thinking about that sooner. Zoom in a little bit tighter. And I'm just going to kind of like rubber stamp around. Yeah, going in a little bit tighter gives me a little bit better control. That's going to look a lot better. There we go. Zoom out. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Zoom back in again. Let's get a little bit more in the middle there. Where's the knees actually are. Okay. Now, in addition to, well, let's do this part next. I'm going to make the brush really small. I'm going to zoom in pretty tight. I'm going to get kind of up underneath here, a little bit here. And I'm going to use the same texture, but I'm going to make the brush pretty small here, like around 20. Zoom in a little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to start up and under here, and I'm going to create sort of like a seam. And go over it a couple of times. And this is going to look pretty natural. When we add a bump map to this, I can actually create that. You know how the seams always get a little bit scuffed up too because they're raised a little bit more. Just you know how jeans are. It's part of the beauty of a pair of jeans is the fact that they kind of get scuffed up and just kind of look better with age sometimes, to a point. Just take this down, and because I've got mirroring turned on, and this is going to happen. Let me straighten this out a little bit. This is going to happen on the other leg too. Whoops! Uh-oh, that was a little crazy there. And then around the bottom, same kind of deal. It's really frayed and scuffy and scruffed up and everything here. Some of these other places where there's folds and whatnot, you know. Do a little of that. And this is the kind of stuff that we could do in Photoshop, certainly, but it would be a lot more difficult to get it right in Photoshop, you know, just because of the nature of you know, trying to work with those mapping coordinate images, the template basically, and try to get it just the way we want. Now, we're not trying to make this look realistic. I don't like that word anyway when we're talking about animation, especially when we're dealing with cartoon characters. Cartoon characters are not real, and they're not realistic, and everybody knows it. We want it to be believable, though, and have some of the qualities of reality, yet realizing that it's not really, you know, that's not really what it's about. Creating reality. All right, so that's going to help a little bit also. And the nice thing about this is that if it's too much, you know, too bright, then I can go in on this layer and adjust it using, let's use this again. Brightness and contrast works pretty great. So what if I want to decrease the brightness of that, see? Or I want to increase the contrast of it and do both, you know. Going to make it strong, but, you know, so let's bring that back down to like 0, somewhere around there. And what if I want to increase the saturation, you know? That makes it more of a blue color, or decrease the saturation makes it more of a gray color. So there's lots of things that we can do in here, and increase the brightness a little bit, you know, increase the contrast slightly, maybe just a little bit, decrease the saturation a little bit so it's not so white. We can even change the hue if we wanted to, but of course we don't want to in this case. Change that back to 0. So that's good for now. Just do that for this part. All right, now the other thing that happens with jeans, obviously, especially if you're, I'm guessing I'm going to say that this kid's about 12 years old, right? And you know, they get dirty, right? So we're gonna deal with some dirt now. So we're gonna go in here. We're gonna actually maybe pick a color that I think will work pretty well in here. If we go with sort of a dirty color, and I'm going to, you know, I'm just going to take a chance here. I'm going to pick this color, and we're going to add the details in here, make the brush a little bit bigger, and start adding some dirt to this on top of this stuff. Now I could have made another layer, but I'm pretty confident that this is going to look pretty good just this way. Now the same deal is going to be down around here, especially in the back where the pants are going to maybe drag the ground a little bit. And so I'm going to zoom back in here and get some smaller detail going. You have sort of this combination of, right, there we go. Let's go down here, get a smaller brush, and do a little bit of that dirt stuff down here as well. You know, it's kind of like a little bit of scumbling. I mean, I think a bigger brush would be better. And I'm not worried about going under the shoes a little bit. We're going to completely do the shoes in just a little bit here. But down here, I want this to be kind of cruddy down here in the back. And we're going to be able to do more detail work, you know, later on as well. That's after we get this started here. Okay, so you can see if we pull this out a little bit, we're starting to get sort of a more natural look here. Okay? All right. Now, we've got our jeans kind of going here. That's pretty good. We're going to work on the shoes separately. Try to keep these videos a little bit shorter than the modeling ones because we can, because these are different sections and stuff, and it goes a little bit better with the texturing stuff. But in the meantime, I'm going to do some things between this video and the next video that are going to be sort of as Mike Eddy and Randy Fain would say in the video area, a jump cut. I'm going to add a logo to this t-shirt, but I'm going to do it in Photoshop, and I'll talk about it. But I'm not going to show you because that's a Photoshop technique, and it's very straightforward, just adding a layer. We're going to open up this PSD file that we're working on in Photoshop and add a layer for the logo, and just simply take a PNG file and put it on above that layer, and that logo will appear on the t-shirt. It's not something that we can do in here or that we need to do in here. It's very easy to do in Photoshop. And the reason why I'm not going to be going over that is because the expectation is that everybody in here is either taking the digital imaging class or or you've already taken it as a prerequisite for this class. So anyway, we're going to do that, and you can see how we can go in and just do so much stuff in here to really make this look really believable, so much easier for the most part than in Photoshop alone. Okay, so that's it for now, and then we're going to start working on the shoes in the next video, and I'll talk about the Photoshop change that I will have made.